Freeman Boat Works and Trilogy Outdoors are proud to announce the addition of Freeman Boat Works to our family of incredible partners. Billy Freeman and his team at Freeman Boat Works epitomize the American dream. From building the first boat in Billy's backyard to a 150,000 square foot state-of-the-art manufacturing plant over the past 15 years, they are building one of the most sought-after boats in the U.S. and beyond. These incredible fishing platforms are built in South Carolina and are second to none in stability, speed, and performance overall. These catamaran designs are engineered not only to get you to the fish fast, but comfortably too. Years of refining designs and pioneering the modern performance fishing catamaran is why Freeman Boat Works is the #1 choice for some of the biggest names in the fishing industry. If it's long runs in the Gulf or the Carolinas, or days you can go fishing in South Florida when most center consoles stay at the dock, Freeman Boat Works is at the forefront in all categories. For more information on Freeman Boat Works and their 6 available models, visit www.freemanboatworks.com. Redefine your expectations.
In Myrtle Beach, you always go at your own pace. Lie out on the sand, lie out by the pool, go boogie boarding, go surfing, walk the boardwalk, walk the marsh walk, golf at one of 90 golf courses, mini golf at one of 50 mini golf courses, fish off a pier, fish from a chartered boat, go shopping, get drinks, eat the freshest seafood. The list is exhaustive, but the experience isn't. You can go all out or do nothing at all. How you relax is up to you. There is so much to do and explore, whether you're traveling with friends, family, or just yourself. With 60 miles of beach, you're going to find your place. If this sounds like what you need, then this is where you belong.
Trilogy Outdoors.
All right, folks, welcome back to Trilogy Outdoors Podcast, and today we are at the Pond Road Storage Studio, not at the Trilogy Outdoors Podcast Studio at the Senator's house, but the Senator is in town, and we're enjoying a beautiful spring day here in the storage building.
Pretty day.
AKA studio. Yeah, it is a beautiful day. We should be fishing, actually. I was telling our guest earlier about some live scope experience that I had yesterday. I was fishing the jetties in Merle's Inlet, and we were fishing the jetties, floating along the jetties, floating live shrimp on a bobber, and we were chasing a school of fish. I could see them moving down the rocks, and we were chasing them. They weren't biting, and then finally caught about 1.5 pound bluefish, and I realized what they were. So we were going to run back into the creek, and I went to fold up the live scope, and I have to flip it over to get it to sit on the side of the boat. And I just happened to be looking at the screen, and I saw 7 fish, 50 feet from the boat, offshore in the sand. And so I moved the boat over a little bit, and they were still sitting there together. And had my niece, I moved her bobber to 10 foot deep. She pitched it over. And I turned around to the screen and I said, "You're getting ready to get up." And her bobber went down. I watched. We sat there for 30 minutes catching weak fish.
Oh, good.
Summer trout, and watching every single one of them hit the baits. It was awesome. I got video of it, trust me.
This is at the jetty?
But I was, huh?
This is at the jetty?
Yep. On the outside.
What is this? This is middle of March?
Middle of March. So they'll be on the 3 Mile Reef spawning.
Yep.
In about 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
2 weeks, yeah.
So the other big thing that's going on is bonito's bite. The bonito mackerel, bonito, not bonita.
Yeah.
And
Striped, not spotted.
Striped, not spotted. And so we were discussing it this weekend about why they're here.
They're late.
They're late.
Super late.
But we went to North Inlet Reef last week to get some video for a presentation I had to do on LiveScope. And we were surrounded by fry on the boat, like around the boat.
Yeah.
Small fish about this big.
Right.
And guessing that should be sheep's head or black drum or redfish, possibly, because that's we do know that black drum and sheep's head spawn out there. Sure. But the guys that are cleaning these bonitos are finding glass minnows that are like 4 inches long, huge glass minnows in them.
Yeah.
But they are so much fun. If you can get out there right now with light tackle and go chase those things down, and do not throw them back. Or if you decide to throw them back, call me. I'll come eat them for you.
Dude, in December, when I got home, I went chasing Bonito. I went chasing Bonitos off of North Island, and was running the beach, and there were still big schools of reds out there. So we were throwing these big Z-Man swim baits, 7-inch, 8-inch Z-Man swim baits.
Yep.
With a 3-ounce jig head.
Yep.
The 3-ounce screw jig head, and the reds were just demolishing that setup, but couldn't find any bonito. And they should have been there back then. So kind of cool that they're here now.
Have you got any word from Z-Man on the Zenator?
I haven't.
We had them on the radio show one day, and they were talking about how they come up with their names, and we were like, "Well, we got one for you, the Zenator."
The Zenator, I love it.
The Zenator. How about introducing our guest? We're sitting here. I know. I'm like, we got a guest here. There is a third voice in here today, and I'd love to have you introduce our guest.
So Jonathan is a Georgetown. Well, why don't you tell us?
Georgetown resident.
Why don't you tell us how you got in? So you came from somewhere else, right?
Yeah. I was born and raised outside of Detroit, small town or mid-sized town, Roseville, Michigan. My mother's family is originally from the upstate near like Oconee, Pickens County area. And so toward the end of high school, we moved to Seneca. I graduated high school there and went to Clemson. And after
Go
Clemson,
Tigers!
Yeah, after about 6 years at Clemson, I moved to Charleston, started my first job there, and then that company transferred me up to. They bought a company and sent me to Horry County to Myrtle Beach, and I've been here since '96. A brief period of time in Horry County, and after about a year and a half in Conway and in Myrtle Beach, my soon-to-be wife and I built a house in Pawleys Island. We've been in Georgetown County since 98, 99. And 7 years ago, we bought a house in downtown Georgetown, and we live one block off of Front Street.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. Two daughters. I got a soon-to-be graduating high school senior. She'll be at Ole Miss in the fall. And then her name is Rory, and my youngest daughter, Lawson, is a freshman. They go to school in Pawleys Island.
Oh, wonderful.
When did you get involved in politics?
When Councilman Rudolph Bradley died at the end of 20, excuse me, I ran a special election in April and won the seat to finish out his 7-month term, and then ran for a full 4-year term and was elected. So I've been on council 4 years now, and I've got another year and a half or so left on the term that I'm in.
With city?
With city council, Georgetown City Council, yeah.
Georgetown's now got 5 Republicans. Is that right?
6.
6 Republicans.
So when I was elected,
I'm glad we got that part cleared out first.
Mayor Carol Giroux was the only conservative. She was a councilwoman at the time. She was only conservative, and she was thinking that she may not run again. And then Councilor Bradley passed away, and I won that seat. And I've known Carol for a while, and I convinced her, Carol, let's build a ticket for the 4 seats that are up for election, and let's see what we can do. And so we built she ran as mayor. I ran for re-election to city council. Councilman Jimmy Morris ran, and we all filed on time. And then during the campaign, Jim Clements, we got him on the ticket as a petition candidate, and we went 4 for 4. So literally before I was elected, there was 1 conservative on city council and 6 Democrats, and 27 months later, there's 1 Democrat and 6 Republicans.
Pretty miraculous turnover there.
That is, and that made a lot of social media went crazy over that. I have a lot of friends that live in Georgetown too. One I know you're going to know, Philip, graduated from Citadel.
Sawyer.
Philip Sawyer.
He was my campaign manager.
I figured that.
Yep,
exactly. He did a great job. Well, congratulations. Now, so the business you work with here has nothing to do with the other stuff.
No. I own an electrical contracting firm. Our main office is in Conway, and then through hard work and our Lord's blessings, we've been able to. And this is over 22 years. We have an office in Wilmington, North Carolina, Charleston, and one in the Bluffton, Hilton Head area. And our growth plans for this year will be an office south of Savannah, probably the Pooler, Georgia area, and the greater Columbia area.
Great. Well, with growth going around here, everybody needs a electrician, contract. Now, what do you do exactly with that company?
I'm the owner. We're an electrical contracting company.
Yep.
We wire houses, townhouses, do a lot of student housing, a lot of multifamily around the southeast.
Well,
There's a lot of building going on.
Yeah, right time, right place. But we're not here today to talk about electrical contracting.
Oh man, shoot!
You
I
know-
really was looking forward to that.
Yeah, we're just not going to do it, I don't think. We're going to talk about some hunting and some guns because Jonathan is a partner in two different companies, which I found to be interesting. One is called Rolling Bones Outfitters.
Yep, Rolling Bones Outdoors, Rolling Bones Outfitters. Yep.
Yep, and the other one is Badlands.
Badlands Rifle Company.
Badlands Rifle Company. Okay, all right. So I did not know that we had another avid hunter in the area. But
No, I told him earlier. I said I love living vicariously through all your trips, and I didn't realize he was from here. I thought he was coming into town or whatever.
Well, when you start seeing High Mountain Argali and Marco Polo and any of the sheep and any of the goat species on somebody's social media, that's a serious undertaking. Not just
Yeah.
financially, it's a serious undertaking, but not just financially. I mean, time commitment to do those hunts. The amount of effort to just get there is one thing, but also to scout
Yep.
and to kill a mature animal is a very difficult process. And so anyway, when I see that, I always want to talk to guys like this and say, what is it that drives you? Why did you move in the direction of sheep and goats and then later on, a little bit later on, I want to talk about how you prepare for it. But talk to me about. Talk to me about like what drove you to get involved in a company like Rolling Bones.
So it's weird. It's kind of fortuitous. I was on social media reading a Western hunting forum, and a guy had posted a picture of a couple of long range rifles. And he is one of Rolling Bones Outdoors booking agents, and he's from Pennsylvania. And I had some conversations with him before, but I had not ever heard of Rolling Bones Outdoors. And I sent him a direct message saying, "Hey, I'd like one of those 7 mags, and I'd take both of them if they're available." Short while later, I got a phone call from our now business partner Brian Mayman from South Dakota and said, "Hey, that was a mistake. That wasn't supposed to go in open forum. But if you're interested, we'll go ahead and sell you one." And I'm like, "Well, will you sell me 2?" And he's like, "Well, only if you and who you're buying it for come to our shooting school." And I said, "Done." So I ended up going out a few months later flew into Rapid City and drove to Spearfish, South Dakota, and spent some time getting to know these guys. And we did a 3-day shooting course in Broadus, Montana. And literally, at the end of before I get to this part of the story, I'm comfortable, shooting white-tailed deer or something up at this point to 300, maybe 400 yards. At the end of the first day of my first shooting academy, the last shot was 1 mile. And I've got a picture I'll show you guys in a little bit. After 6 hours of instruction, I missed the bullseye at 1 mile by the width of my fingers. 10 inches. And so what that taught me is, with proper equipment and proper training and the proper mindset, that shots that far are attainable. And I've done shooting academies. I'm a part-time instructor. I'll go out with our guys and help them shoot. And I've seen people that have a hard time zeroing at 200 at the beginning of the day, consistently hitting 800, 900, 1,100 yard shots at the end of one day. But most people, that if they're not trained in how to shoot and how to prepare their body, are afraid to take that shot.
Sure.
So So that's how I got involved with Rolling Bones initially, and then a couple of years ago, two of the stakeholders in the company were wanting to cash out. I had become a customer, and they were managing my points for like 9 of the Rocky Mountain states, and I'd done some international hunting with them. And so Brian Mayman and Brad Dana asked Al Jones, my business partner, and I if we would be interested in becoming part of the organization, and we jumped right at it, and we bought 20% of the company. And about a year and a half ago, we started having conversations about building our own rifles. And so the rifle that I initially bought was based on a Remington Model 700 platform. We had some tricks to it, custom triggers and stuff, but we wanted to build our own rifles. All of top quality components, the stocks, the upper metal, the actions. We do a long action, a short action, the scopes, the rings, and we brought in a man named Jeff Sipe. His family and he were the original Montana rifle people, and
Great reputation.
Great, yep. And so Jeff is our president and CEO, and he developed this. It took him about a year or so. He's been in the industry, so he knew the parts, the components. He knew, okay, if I want to build a sexy rifle for myself, this is what my recipe is going to be. And a little bit of research, a little bit of conversation. What his initial idea is what we 90% of that initial idea is what we are manufacturing and selling now, and they're great rifles. Mine's actually my first one. When we first started, sales were pretty hot, and so I'm like, you know what? Rather than build one of these for one of the owners, let's build them for our customers. And when there's an opportunity when there's a lull in a manufacturing schedule, let's go ahead and I'll put my order in. So mine's on the way now to 6.5 PRC, and hopefully I'll have it by our shooting academy at the end of April. Cool. I'll pick it up out there and zero it in, and I think we're gonna have 13 shooters, and we'll see how it goes. I'm excited for it.
So when you got involved in this company, were you already hunting worldwide at that point in time?
Oh yeah, not necessarily worldwide. I'd hunted in the South Pacific and New Zealand and Australia. I think up at that point, and Canada. I've probably hunted Canada a dozen times, but most of my hunting was elk, mule deer, moose in the American Rockies and the Canadian Rockies, and then going back and forth and visiting our people out there, visiting our office, started looking at. It started with the guy that I got the rifle information from. He and I were talking about a Dall sheep hunt in Alaska, out of Anchorage, and so once I shot my Dall sheep, I'd shot a sheep down in Australia or New Zealand, and one of the piece de resistance of hunting is your North American slam. I'm halfway there. I actually was blessed a year and a half ago and shot the largest stone sheep in northern British Columbia, which is actually out for delivery this week. It should be here, full body mount. But then, so just conversations and thoughts about sheep hunting.
What are you missing North American wise?
Excuse me?
You missing the bighorn?
The bighorn and the desert. Yep.
And the desert, yeah. Which are two of the most difficult to get. So where do you have points in right now?
Utah, Arizona, Nevada, New Mexico, South Dakota, Montana. Did I say Arizona? Pretty much all the Rocky Mountain states. I don't think I am doing anything. I'm putting in for sheep, mountain goat, elk, whatever states have moose.
Yeah, that's about how I do it too. So I'm
You do it all yourself, though, don't you?
I do. I manage it all myself, which that's
a lot of stuff to keep up with.
That's a lot to keep up with, and that's one of the benefits, or one of the things that initially when I got involved with these people is who are now obviously now my business partners. I went out there with a buddy of ours, Dan Stacy. We went out. We were going to go mule deer hunting with Jim Johnston in Broadus, Montana. And when I went into the office, I sat down and we did a hunt plan. And okay, what do you want to hunt? Where do you want to hunt? You know, do you want to do limited entry units? And so in about an hour and a half of sitting down with one of our advisors there at what we call the Bone Cave, they manage for $150 a year. We have different levels of membership, and I am a member even though I'm an owner. They manage everything for me. They manage all. I think I'm applying right now for 38 different tags a year around the country and the lower 48 and in Alaska. You know, one of the tough things, as a hunter, is a lot of the western states right now are changing their allocation for your tags.
Yeah, non-residents are getting shafted on quite a bit of that.
Oh, I know guys like you and I and other people that have been applying for, say, mountain goat in Montana for 13 years.
Yep.
You know, well, we give for these 7 units, we're giving away one tag for out-of-staters a year. And so you're like, but then they're giving away 400 tags to in-state residents. And I understand the politics to it. But you know, my thought is, and Stephen, you chime in and tell me if I'm wrong. But my thought is, if part of that state's natural resources budget is coming from federal dollars, most of it's coming from your in-state hunting licenses, what have you. But there should be just a little more consideration if I'm paying federal taxes, and part of my federal taxes are funding research and U.S. Fish and Wildlife and all the things that are happening in Montana and Wyoming and Idaho and. It's a tough pill to swallow when you've been working it, doing this.
Well, not only that, but the majority of those tags, at least the ones that I draw or attempt to draw, are federal lands.
Yes.
You know, so not only we're talking a federal land that's stuck in the middle of Colorado or Wyoming or Montana is federal land. To me, that's not state land. That's not Wyoming land. That's not Montana land. That's not Colorado land. Mm-hmm. It's federal land.
Right.
It doesn't matter if it's sitting in the middle of Montana or it's sitting in the middle of South Carolina. It's federal land.
Yep.
Therefore, the natural resources that exist within that federal land exist for the purpose of me as much as it does for the purpose of the guy living in Wyoming where that land exists. And so I'm not sure if it's even legal or constitutional. And I know some of this stuff is going through the court. But now, if we're talking about state lands, private land, landowner tags, to me that's a different, completely different. You know, and you can allocate those as you see fit. But federal lands, I'm not sure if you have the ability or should have the ability to dedicate non-resident tags at a lesser degree than resident tags. I don't think that's legal. It shouldn't be, at least.
Well, I wouldn't think it would be.
And I tell you, one of the one of the groups that are affected by this greatly are the outfitter associations.
Absolutely.
Because they're giving tags away, and more of the tag resources are going to residents who are going to go hunt by themselves or on their own. And then here you've got an outfitter who is he's got his horses, his livestock, his camps. He maintains year round. But now, instead of taking 7 or 10 elk hunters a year, he gets 1 or he gets 2. And it's putting a squeeze on some of these guys who have made a career of being a guide, service, and an outfitter.
And that causes a huge inflationary problem as well, right? I mean, if you got a really good unit, a really good backcountry unit that's only accessible by horse or by really dedicated people, and you've got one outfitter with rights to that unit that's hunting that unit, and he ends up with 2 elk tags or 1 sheep tag.
Yep.
How much money do you think that elk tag or that sheep tag is going to draw? It's going to draw a lot of money.
Yep.
A lot of money. And it pushes the guys that used to be able to afford it 15 years ago right out of the market.
Completely out of the market. Shuts them out.
Shuts them totally out. I'm as I mentioned, I'm managing my own tags right now. I don't put out in all of the states, all of the western states, but I'm managing my little pile of tags, and I'm in elk, mule deer, goat, bighorn, desert bighorn, and moose.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. and I've got and I've really over my years I've tried to focus on Colorado because Colorado's got its problems, I know, but I've tried to focus on Colorado because I've been going to Colorado for 25 years, and I've learned a piece of public that I just love.
Yep.
Right. I know it like the back of my hand. I know where I camp. I know where I don't camp. I know the animal migrations. I know how they react. I know if there's going to be an early rut or a late rut. Right.
Yep.
I know it and I love it, and it feels like a second home to me. Right. And so I've always focused all my efforts on that particular area, and obviously if I get drawn for a goat tag, and I got to go hunt in Mount Evans at 13,000 feet, I'm going to be in a different place for sure than I normally hunt. But traditionally, I'm in one little corner of Colorado, okay, and I believe that my contribution to the economy in that particular part of Colorado over the last 25 years has probably been pretty dang substantial.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you go and you start clawing back, in essence, clawing back tags from people like us who have been contributing heavily to a part of Colorado or a part of Montana or a part of Wyoming that traditionally doesn't get any kind of, I'm not hunting in a ski resort.
Right.
Right?
Exactly.
I'm not hunting in Denver. I'm not hunting in Vail. Right. I'm not hunting in the places that traditionally have the tourism economy. I'm hunting in little dinky little towns that have got one barbecue joint and a bar.
Yep.
Right? And some meth heads.
Yep.
I mean, and a lot of pretty mountains, right?
Yeah.
And that's where I like to hunt. I don't like to hunt in big and there's just not. Usually you don't hunt in big cities or big towns.
Right.
And so, the economy itself takes a dive when you start drawing back because the locals aren't going to contribute to the economy in the same way that a guy like me that's got to go get a hotel. I'm going to be eating out if I'm not camping on the mountain every night. I'm going to be eating out if I am camping on the mountain. I traditionally I don't keep a storage unit out there, so I don't keep my stuff.
Yeah.
When I go every year, I buy almost all new stuff.
All your provisions you pick up right there in town.
Everything. In fact, I buy a tent every single year. I'm that much of a some people would find that to be crazy, but I don't want to pack up everything and ship it back. I don't want a storage unit. I don't want any of that stuff. So I go to Walmart and I spend $600 at Walmart, and then I'll go to REI and I'll spend $600 at REI, or, if there's a Cabela's or a
local sporting goods store or something.
Sporting goods store. Yeah, I'll spend that money there. I put it all in the back of a rental truck, which I rent at the airport, right? And I drive up into the hills. I put all that junk on my back and I walk.
Yep.
Right, and then when I'm done with it, I give it away to the Goodwill, right? Literally, or if somebody wants to buy it, I'll sell it to them. That's hard to find too. But my point is, every single year, I'm dumping thousands of dollars into that economy, assuming that I'm not staying at a hotel, okay, in a little hotel. And they're just constantly ripping it back from us. And I see my points being valued less and less. My goat tag, 5 years ago, I could have gotten drawn with what I have now on my goat tag. And now I'm looking like probably another 7-8 years.
Yep.
Why? Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
That is,
Yeah.
I'm just amazed at how long y'all end up having to wait.
Oh, it's crazy. And some if you're talking about sheep hunts.
Well, I know you were talking about one of the hunts you were signing Trip up for, already. You were going to put Trip in so that he had a chance when he got old enough to enjoy it.
So where I'm hunting a moose to draw moose, and I've been trying to draw a moose for 10 years now, on average it's going to take 18, okay? By the time I get to 18, it's probably going to be more like 28.
Yep.
Okay, same thing with goat. 5 years ago, 7 points would have gotten me a goat. Now it's more like 14 to 16 points to get a goat where I am. So it's just they keep moving the ball. The target's moving constantly, and it. I could literally go out there every single year in the past. I could literally go out there every single year, 3-4 times a year, and hunt something, right? Now, it's been cut back to twice a year. Next year, the year after that, it could be cut back to once a year.
Mm-hmm.
How much money do you think is being pulled out of that economy by this sort of
A lot.
By this sort of, now multiply me times 100,000 people.
Yep. You're talking about just Stephen Goldfinch today, but there's a lot of Stephen Goldfinch.
There's a lot of it.
Then you go to
Al Jones
your business. How many people are buying rifles when they're not? Why are they going to buy a rifle when they can't go but once every 15 to 18 years?
That's
I mean,
right.
And I'll tell you something else too. And
that's tough.
And I'm not gonna.
Wow.
I'm not gonna indict every local person in Colorado or Montana, but a lot of the local people, a lot of them, not all of them, a lot of the local people are just lazy.
Yep.
Like they literally don't want to take the time. They live it. I guess you can't really blame them a whole lot. It's like us living here. You got the beach. How often do you go to the beach?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Like I go to the beach a couple times a year because my wife makes me take the kids there.
Yep.
That's it.
Right. So I sort of understand the philosophy, but most of the local people, if you say, how's the elk hunting this year? Well, I rode my four-wheeler as far as I could ride. I didn't see an elk. I turned around and I came back to the truck. Or I rode my four-wheeler as far as I could ride. I saw an elk, shot it, couldn't get to it with my four-wheeler, And so it is something that's, I believe, is totally taken. I wouldn't say taken advantage of. That's not quite the right word. But they don't put nearly as effort. If you meet a local, they don't put nearly as much effort.
Taken for granted.
Taken for granted. Nearly as much expense, nearly as much effort as a person that waits this entire year to get on an airplane and go out west to do. And so certainly I believe the impact is much greater economically, certainly from an emotional standpoint. I believe, and it's an emotional standpoint, I don't have any data to support it, but I believe by diminishing the amount of out-of-state tags, you are significantly diminishing the amount of money you're taking into your state.
Absolutely.
Significantly.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So,
wow.
I want to talk to you about Asiatic hunting for a minute.
Uh-huh.
I noticed you got a couple big sheep on your social media page.
Yeah.
What's your social media handles?
Jonathan Angner on Facebook, ANGNER, and then Jonathan _Angner, ANGNER on Instagram.
Okay, and so I've noticed. I saw Marco Polo.
Yep.
Did I see a high mountain argali?
No, Marco Polo, an ibex, mid-Asian ibex.
Okay.
I have not. I've hunted, and those were this past fall in Tajikistan. Great country, incredible adventure, and we can talk about that. I've been to Kyrgyzstan. I've been to Azerbaijan, and I may go back to Kyrgyzstan this fall, depending upon dad requirements of Parents' Weekend and stuff at my girls at Ole Miss. But internationally, I've hunted. Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan's another funny story. We'll get into it at some point. My next stand, I don't know if it's going to be Mongolia or Kazakhstan, or probably going to be Mongolia. Not this year, even though I have an opportunity. Like I said, I got to figure out what I've got to be and where I've got to be with my daughter. So,
and what are you chasing nowadays? What's the next animal?
My next animal will be probably a Hume argali. Internationally, one of the argalis. And when you think of sheep hunting, when you talk to someone who's not a hunter or fisher or any involved in the outdoors, they're thinking the little Baba black sheep, the white thing, little Bo Peep. These are hardy. Like my Tajikistan Marco, that thing was 375 pounds dead on the ground.
Right.
I mean, and we were at 16,000, just 16,650 feet.
Wow.
All right, and you got to stop.
Wow.
You got to stop right there because people that have never felt really 10 plus, honestly, like if you've never felt it, you can't appreciate what hunting, hiking, even like surviving at 16,000 feet means. I've done quite a few hunts in the high country, and I can tell you, like one of the things I always notice, I don't know about you, Jonathan, but one of the things I always notice when you get up to pee at night, Like for me, that's the worst.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm awake, I've had my caffeine, the blood's pumping, it sucks. I mean, you really got to acclimate. But if you're not acclimated, and you get up in the middle of the night and you go pee, there's something about your blood pressure dropping when you pee in the middle of the night.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's terrible. Like you feel so sick. I do, at least, standing there in the middle of the night. You're trying to brace yourself, trying not to fall face first into
Yep.
your own pee. You start seeing the black dots.
Yep.
It's horrible. It's horrible. Just existing at 16,000 feet is not a fun thing.
It's a challenge. So this year, Tajikistan, I'm not going to say I overtrained, but I trained a lot, and I train year round. Do CrossFit and jog. I used to cycle a lot. But 4 years ago in Kyrgyzstan, I went with a buddy of mine who we had moose hunted in Alaska together. He's from Iowa, Jason Goslinga. We flew into Bishkek, Kyrgyzstan, and then drove 16, 18 hours along the old Silk Road, historic Silk Road on the Kazakhstan border. The majority of the time you could see border guards and security fences. Kazakhstan was just right there. We went through the Naran Valley, and then we were 4 or 5 miles from the Chinese border, and then we went through a checkpoint, a Chinese military. Well, I don't know why they had that checkpoint in another country, but anyway, we went through the checkpoint, took a hard right, and drove up a river valley for 5 hours. Our base camp was about 9,800 feet, and then after a day of acclimating there, we got on horses and climbed for a day, and we set up our spike camp at 12,000 feet. I could not walk from here across the parking lot without getting dizzy, without just feeling fatigued. It was something that I'd never experienced, and here where we live, I mean, there's no way to train for 12,000 feet.
Yeah.
I mean, at the best you can do is maybe get on a Stairmaster or treadmill or something, but there's no way to train your body.
It doesn't.
You
do
live
it
10
justice.
feet above sea level.
No, it doesn't.
That height.
It doesn't do it justice at all. And nobody. If you live in the mountains, it's hard to understand like what sea level does to your body over the year.
Yeah.
Like we are at such a disadvantage to a guy that lives in the high country in Colorado, for instance. I mean,
Yeah.
such a disadvantage because of this sea level.
Well, before I went to Kyrgyzstan, I had a physical one, and I'm in pretty good shape physically. But I talked to one of the guys that had been to Kyrgyzstan, and he said, you need to get this medicine. It's a prescription medicine. Your doctor give it to you. It's called Diamox, and it's a bronchial and arterial dilator. It allows you to ward off altitude sickness.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And so I took Diamox for about 3 days when I was in Kyrgyzstan, but kind of like what you're talking about, when you go to the bathroom,
Yeah.
my fingers were tingling, my hands were tingling, and so after a couple of days of taking Diamox in country, I kind of shied away from it. But that hunt, it was our first day on the mountain. We got caught in a blizzard, and we were snowed in for 4 days. The highest, I carry a little like matchbook size thermometer. And the highest it got for 4 days was 21 degrees below zero. Mm-hmm. The wind blew so hard that it collapsed 2 of our tents, and we just sat there huddled up. Me and I'm a big guy. I'm 6'2". At the time, I was 250, 255. Jason is 6'5", former college basketball player. He's about 270. So you had 2 behemoth guys with 5 layers of clothes on, laid up in a half busted down tent. And I'm like, it's funny. Every day, we carried fuel for our little stoves. The guides spoke no English. They had these long 2-liter plastic bottles, and we'd have to burn fuel to make water, to make soup, to make tea, to make whatever. And after 4 days, the weather broke, and we were almost out of fuel. And every morning I would get up and I'd pray. I'd say, Lord, give me a sign. And then that day would be the same as yesterday. I'd get up the next morning. Lord, give me a sign. And finally, day 5, when the weather broke, it hit me when I saw we were almost out of fuel, that the Lord had been giving me a sign. I wasn't paying attention to his message, and that I sincerely believe what the Lord was telling me is, you need to get out of Kyrgyzstan.
Yeah.
I wasn't well there. I was constantly exhausted, frozen. I came back and for 6 months. It took 6 months of after I got back before the skin had stopped peeling and sloughing off of my feet. I had onset frostbite in both feet.
Yeah.
So fast forward to this past fall, Brad Dana and Brian Mayman and I went to Tajikistan. We got that hunt like 4 years ago, but with COVID and international travel issues and some stuff with U.S. Fish and Wildlife CITES permits, we kept having to bump it back. We went out there and very well prepared. We have a great outfitter. I spent a lot of time cutting weight and getting in shape, and 16,000 feet was much more comfortable. When you had been to 12 and failed, you knew, okay, I got to change my fitness. I got to change something about being prepared, and we were successful. I killed my ibex about 4 hours into the first day, and it was not a far shot. I like to shoot long, but we'd spotted this group of 5 ibex about a mile and a half, and we were driving in these Land Rover type vehicles. Some of them were, like 1 or 2 of them were ex-Russian military 4x4s that were probably from the 60s. We could drive and get the majority of the place we needed to get on wheels, and then you get out and hike. And it was incredible that when the ibex we saw from the valley, I didn't spot them right away. The guides did, and we broke the glass out and saw them. And I'm like, okay, let's go after them. And so we drove for about 30 minutes, got out, and we drove all the way around so where there was no way they could see us. We got out, climbed over the crest of the mountain, and there were slow little undulating, and there's no trees. You're so high, you're way above the tree line. And there'd be small little undulations in the hill. And Shavkat, our guide, was like, they're going to be right over this next little hill. And so we're sneaking up. Shavkat's poking his head up, and he's like, they're right there. Literally, we'd seen him 3 hours earlier, and he knew where those things were within 50 yards. And we popped up over the hill. They all turned around, looked at us, stood up, didn't know what we were. I peeled off a shot at like 190 and crushed it, and he went about 5 steps. The other ones went over a hill, and I hit him again, and he died in his tracks right there. It was, and I'm like, golly, I've been waiting for 4 years, and half my hunt's over in 4 hours.
Yeah.
And then like 2 days, that was on a Monday, and then Wednesday at around noon, shot my Marco Polo, which is just an absolute magnificent animal. We started to say earlier about Little Bo Peep. These things are huge, heavily musculared.
They would have to be to live in that terrain.
Yeah.
I'm looking at.
What's
by
incredible?
the way, I'm over there. I'm looking, trying to figure out. You mentioned green and trees. I'm like, it doesn't look like there's much green in Tajikistan.
No. They will climb down, but what their main food source is they paw at the rocks, the little scree or slate, and there's little fungus. There's little tiny little, and the stuff grows year round. I don't know how it grows.
Like lichens.
Yeah, but you're like, how can they get that big?
Yeah.
But that's all they do is they sleep, they breed in the breeding season, and then they forage for food. That's their existence, But they're incredibly tough animals. It's a tough environment, and I tell you what, the Tajiki people are tough people.
Oh yeah.
Tough people.
Yeah.
We they were like, okay, I get the glory load, I get the horns and the cape on my backpack packing out, and they're one guy, Shavkat's, he was former Russian military. he was a naval officer. He's got one front quarter and one hind quarter on his shoulders, and he's just stomping away. And he's about 5'10".
Yeah.
And I'm like, I guess when you exist at that, your body gets used to it. But you and I, it'd be tough.
Yeah, it's a tough thing. People, I tell people, my Zimbabwe hunt was.
Oh, Africa! I can't wait. Go ahead. Let me hear it.
So I had I've had a few horrible experiences in Africa, honestly.
Yes.
And on one of my hunts in Zimbabwe, I broke my back and herniated a disc and running from a honey badger, and it fell in a warthog hole. And anyway, I explained this trip to people from like beginning to end. You know, you're staying in this little teeny dirt hut by this lake, and there's a crocodile that climbs up on the bank in front of our hut every morning, and you have to watch where you're walking, especially if you come out at night, if you got to go pee, because there could be a crocodile or a hippo sleeping in front of your hut. Every morning when you get up, if you want to shower, which that's questionable, you have to walk uphill where there's a lead pipe that fills a lead container, a 5-gallon lead container. You have to fill it with water down at the lake where there's the crocodile and the hippo with a bucket. You have to walk it uphill. You have to pour it in this lead container. Then you have to light a fire under the lead container.
Yep.
And then you have to, pull the latch up where the water will run down the lead pipe into, what you could call a shower head, which you stand underneath.
Yeah.
And you hope that you don't scald your skin off or freeze to death, one or the other.
Yep.
Right? And then you start the hunt, which is absolutely, brutal, filled with tsetse flies and mosquitoes with malaria in a place that's full of lions and leopards and everything that wants to kill you.
Puff adder, snakes, all type of venomous vipers. Yeah.
The nastiest spiders, the nastiest scorpions, the nastiest snakes on earth, right? And people look at you and they just think, why in the hell would you want to do such a thing? And it reminds me of your Kyrgyzstan trip. Why in the hell would you want to do such a thing? And like I said, my last trip to Zimbabwe ended with a broken back and a herniated disc. And I always think to myself, if I hadn't had gone on that trip, and I ended up getting a sable. I was leopard hunting, but I ended up getting a sable on that trip anyway. And I have this sable in my house to this day, and I love it because it's a really wild sable. And there are some places where there aren't such wild sables. I mean, this is a wild, hard-earned sable. And people always want to know, why do you do this? Like, why would you go and put yourself all through this, the most painful that doesn't sound like a vacation to me. Well, it's not a vacation. It's an obsession.
Yeah.
Right? And people don't seem to understand that. But I always think to myself, if I hadn't gone and done that and had the trouble that I had, I wouldn't be able to tell this story today.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
And I wouldn't be able to think back on it. And I wouldn't be able to grow from it and to learn from it and to think what I can do better next time and what I shouldn't do better next time. Like this obsession that we all have it in some way or some degree, right? I mean, either hunting a high mountain argali in China or Kyrgyzstan, or, somebody hunting a white-tailed deer on their 100-acre piece of property.
Right.
We all have some level of degree of this obsession, but it's just a matter of how much pain and effort and money you're willing to spend along the way.
Right.
Your story of Kyrgyzstan, my story of Zimbabwe, and Inglis's story of hunting a whitetail on his 100-acre wood, they all have something in common.
Yep.
Right? And it's that we have love. We have a passion for what we do. And honestly, I've heard some horrific stories from guys that didn't have to travel to Kyrgyzstan or Zimbabwe. I've heard the story. Remember the guy in English that broke both of his legs in the deer stand? This is about 8 or 10 years ago. He fell out of the deer stand, broke both of his legs, falling backwards. And his head, he ended up getting his head trapped down. and the mosquitoes all swarmed his head. And
That's right.
They didn't find him for like 20 hours, but he survived.
He survived.
Broke
Yep.
both of his legs. All right. Point being, the guy still deer hunts. You know, the guy still deer hunts. The point being, like, we love it. That's why we do. We love it. And I know that you, whoever you are out there, I know that you don't see my obsession as your obsession. You don't see my love for this as your love for this. But I don't hold that against you. I don't hold what you do as a love. I don't hold your. I mean, you pick what you do, right? This person that I had an interaction with the other day was telling me that she'd rather just sit home and play with her dog. And I told her something to the effect of, and I may have been a little bit rude about it. This was in Columbia at a dinner the other night, and so I was probably already upset. But I said something to the effect of, I would rather risk my life every single day doing something I love than live a life with no risk.
Correct. I agree 100%.
Right? And it just doesn't quite compute for some people.
Nope.
They live in this little bubble. They live in this little bubble where they go to work, they come home, they pet their dog, they go to sleep, they do it all over again. And if that's what makes you happy, by all means, stay happy. But I have to have a little risk in my life.
Yeah.
And I love it. And I love it. And you do too. You got the sickness.
That's what he and I were talking. I told him earlier when you were pulling up. I said, I like to live vicariously through the senator's trips. I said, I've done that. We were friends before we became business partners, and I love doing that. I don't think I would have the interest in doing what y'all do. Yeah. I don't. I love it, and I respect it too. I respect any of y'all that do it tremendously. But I'm that 100-acre whitetail deer guy, but probably you could put me more as a 4-acre duck impoundment guy, maybe.
There you go. Yeah.
I'm that guy.
And
or
that's
going
cool.
Turkey hunting.
Look, and that's cool too, right? But
I think my issue would be the waiting on the putting your points in.
Oh, yeah.
I think I would go crazy. I don't even sign up for South Carolina for the duck blinds, and even the senator has to wait 3 years or every 4 years.
Yeah.
Like, you should have some pull, man.
But that level of commitment to wait 10, 12, 18 years, in some cases, 18 years, 20 years, heck, for a sheep, for me now, it's probably unattainable. By the time I can draw a bighorn tag or a desert bighorn tag where I want to hunt, I'm going to be too old to be able to do it.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, we haven't talked about, and I'd like to get to at some point.
Okay.
There's a finite amount of time by which you can actually do this kind of hunting.
Correct.
And, if you're in like super.
Now, you're not talking about in lifespan, or are you talking about during the year?
No, I'm
You're
talking about
in
your
your life.
lifespan.
That's what I figured.
Like, I've got buddies of mine. I've got a great buddy of mine that lives out in Colorado. He's a lawyer too. And we've been hunting elk together on and off, like not every year, but pretty much every year, every other year, if not every year. We've been hunting elk together for 20 plus years, and mule deer.
Mm-hmm.
And he is 63 now, 63 or 64 now. He's had one heart attack. He just had a neck surgery. He's had a back surgery. And every year for the last 5 or 6 years, I've started thinking, is this the last year?
Yeah.
Is this the last year? And I think we're getting to the point now where it's truly like this could be the last year.
Right.
And that makes me incredibly sad. But it's also sobering to think, okay, well, I've got maybe 18, 20 more years if I stay in shape.
Yep.
Maybe 18 or 20 more years if I stay in shape. I've got an 8-year-old son and a 10-year-old daughter. How much time do I have to invest in their love of this sport?
Yep.
Before they go off to college. So that, kids, once they go to college, you got maybe a 6 or 7 year period there where you don't spend a lot of time with them, right? And so you got to think, you got just a finite amount of time to invest and instill that love in your children that you've had, that you've built, that commitment that, Jonathan, that you have, the knowledge, the institutional knowledge about how to do this stuff, and
Yep.
how to survive in the wilderness, which it's a lost art nowadays.
Yeah.
You've got a very finite amount of time to instill that in your kids. I'm thinking right now, Tripp's 8 years old. I've got 10 more years to invest in him. Like, you can't really teach them until they get to a certain age, right? 8 to 10 years old is about where you can,
When they want to.
right, where you can really start, turning the screws and making them think about things. They're just too immature before that, right?
Right.
I mean, so I got a good solid 10 years starting like literally right now that I could take him to Colorado or Wyoming or Montana or Africa. I'm taking him to Africa next year.
Uh-huh.
And I can sort of show him, okay, this is how you start a fire, This is how you need to tie your boots so you don't trip on your laces when you're on steep inclines.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you need to bring duct tape with you everywhere you go.
Yep.
Or paracord everywhere you go, right? Like, they're just the little things in life about surviving and living and not just surviving, but like thriving in a very dangerous and tough environment. 10 years I got with him before he's on his own.
Yep.
And we'll probably have another 10-year gap there where he's gone, like, trying to create a life for himself.
And do his own thing.
And by the time he's there and creates that life for himself and can do it on his own, I'm too old.
You're too old. Yeah.
I'm out.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking 10 years.
what
That's
you
it.
got.
That's
Yep.
what I got.
Yep.
That's what I got. And that's what I've got to invest in the next generation. And to me, that's really freaking scary.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's all I've got left to invest in this next generation of, this love, this passion, this obsession of the outdoors. 10 years. 10 years, y'all.
I've been fortunate that we've got a little 100-acre farm not far from where y'all's place is. I've been fortunate that we've had that place, and my daughters came up and they go sit in the ground blind or sit in a ladder stand with me at the age of 4. I remember one time climbing up with my daughter, taking one step in front of me, and if she fell, she would fall 4 inches into my arms.
Right.
But both of my girls killed their first deer, both a doe, when before first grade. Lawson's killed a few since then. Rory has also last year. We didn't know what Rory's senior year was going to look like, so her and I put in, and Rolling Bones assisted us for antelope tags, and I took her out to Buffalo, Wyoming, and she cracked an antelope at 465 yards. The first time she ever pulled the trigger on that.
Nice.
Sure.
And
That's excellent.
so I've fed into both of the girls, and they have the passion for it. But what you were saying is 100% true. They're by your side. You're part of their life. They're part of your life. And then there's a period of time when they're off doing their own thing, college, getting married, starting their family. And so the time is precious. People ask me, you may know English. I'm pretty sure you know Jim Johnston and Boney Peace.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we're talking about the time you've got to be healthy. When I first started this 15, 20 years ago, this obsession, these travel trips I would go on, someone asked me one time, and I said, why don't you wait until your children are grown, or why don't you? And I'm like, I can't wait, because when that time is, you have a limited time physically that you can do these things, that you can climb, that you can survive a twisted ankle or whatever. But Boney Peace years ago, and I think it was Colorado, but it could have been Montana, had a horse accident, broke his pelvis. And I remember his son Andy was telling me about it. And a broken pelvis, if you use the age of 65 as a benchmark, if you break your pelvis before the age of 65, you have an 80% chance of recovery. Within 2 years, you'll be good.
Yeah.
If you break your pelvis post age 65, you have an 80% chance of mortality within 2 years.
Yeah.
It's that ravaging on your body to heal and recuperate. It's not like they can put cast on you or a splint on your pelvis.
Right, it's horrible.
And so I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do as much of this crazy stuff. And I've had a couple of hunting accidents. One at our farm in Chopee with a tree stand, and my wife was fit to be tied. We were leaving 3 days later to go on a horseback hunt in the Salmon Chalice Wilderness area in Idaho. And my wife was so mad at me and the fact that I didn't go seek medical attention when it happened at 9 o'clock in the morning. It was when I got home at 9 o'clock that night, and she saw me limping around with, 2 compression fractures in my feet and hands.
Yep.
She was, and I made a promise to her then, and part of it was because I really wanted to go on this hunt, and Dr. Ralph Sprinkle, the podiatrist, said you should be okay. But I made a promise. Look, you will never get the call that we hope to recover your husband's body because he did something stupid.
Yeah.
I've walked away from more stalks on elk. I've been like, it ain't worth it.
Yeah.
It ain't that animal. If not that animal, there'd be another one tomorrow somewhere. My health means too much to me, and your wife, my wife, your wife. We've got incredible life partners that allow us to pursue our passions, and I never want to be that guy. It was like the Kyrgyzstan. It was so. I'm like, Lord, give me a sign. I'm not going to force this situation. Sometimes you just got to know when to pack it up and say it's not going to happen today. So many people won't step out of their comfort zone.
Yeah.
To go deer hunting or duck hunting or turkey hunting. They lead a sedentary existence and they never push themselves.
And that's such a sad way to exist.
To exist, yeah,
it is.
I mean, it is such a sad way to exist. It's like living sedated your entire life, being numb.
So, I'm listening to both of y'all talk, and I'm going to guess that you probably had your daughters at an age similar to him. I unfortunately waited late, and I did enjoy the years that I should have probably been raising kids. But now is when I sit there, and it bothers me. I'm not going to lie. I try to play it off, but it bothers me. And Kim and I always said, well, you'll be fine. Like, well, you'll be a great dad, blah, blah, blah. And I knew that wasn't going to be an issue. I knew that. I've always had those tendencies. But now it's like just this weekend with Russ and the fishing tournament and the things that happen. And, I find myself like just trying to not spoon feed, more or less force feed him things that I want him to know.
Yeah.
This is what I want you to know in case I die next week. Like, these are the things I want you to know, and blah, blah, blah. And I find myself doing it. And I look back and I go, man, were those 10 years of partying and doing everything really worth it now, where you could have traded going backwards and had them and then be able to look at planning a trip to go to Colorado and do something like that and everything else. And I guess for all intents and purposes, my mom and dad both agree with me that those 10 years made me who I am now and made me appreciate what I have now and the opportunities that I have. So it all did play out the way it should have. But, when I go to the gas station and the gas station attendant says, "Oh, you got your grandson today," I'm like, no, asshole, that's my son.
Yeah.
And my kids laugh about it. We get it all the time. It's just become secondary. We just kind of wash it off. But, I do find myself like, I know every year goes by that Kinsley doesn't go deer hunting with me. Every year goes by, and I'm like, oh, my gosh, I got to get her out there. Like, I'm really, if something happened and I never got to take her and teach her the things that I'm teaching Russ now, he's already learning. And you do the same thing with Trip. And, what was that 10 to 12 years that I just chose to enjoy life and, do my thing worth it? I don't know. Anyway.
I'll give you a great example. Yesterday, the timing was just weird. Like when I'm home from Columbia, when I'm home from the State House, I feel like every single day I need to be
doing something with your family.
Doing something, right?
Oh, I see it out of you. Yeah.
And like yesterday, the timing was really weird. Like our neighbor, her dad died. And so we wanted to sort of like be over at their house yesterday afternoon and also needed to cook something. and I had, something at like 10 o'clock in the morning yesterday. And so like there was no time through the day for which I could take Tripp and Hadley to do anything on a Saturday. And to me, like it just eats at me because I'm gone 3-4 days a week already. It just eats at me inside. Like you need to be doing something. You need to be doing something. Get up and do something. But like there's no time. Like this morning, I ran to the farm as soon as I got the kids out the house to go get that coyote out of the trap. Which, by the way, I've stopped shooting coyotes. I'm not even wasting bullets on them anymore.
You just trapping them?
I hit them in the head with a stick. Like I got a big. I call it a blunt. I got this big blunt force object that I leave on the. It's a big stick, but it looks like the old Fred Flintstone club.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's a log about that big
my
around,
God.
like as big around as your calf, and then it bulbs. It's like bulbous. Is that the right word?
Yep.
It bulbs out on the end, so it looks like an old Fred Flintstone club, and I just leave it there. And whenever I catch a coyote or a raccoon, I just whack him in the head with the thing. Anyway, I don't know why I got sidetracked.
I like that though.
But I ran to the farm this morning as quick as I could to let the dog run, to give her a little bit of exercise, and just because I knew I'm going to Columbia again tomorrow, and I'm not going to be able to get back there for the rest of the week.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so I die inside a little bit every day that I'm not able to get outside, and I die a little bit inside every day that I'm not able to get my kids outside, because I know that period of time is now, right? Like you've got to invest now,
Yep.
or else you're going to lose it. And there's so much. Like I've got a bunch of my buddies that are dying in their mid and late 40s. From heart, I had 3 buddies. Stanley Myers. Stanley Myers was a JAG. He was in the JAG Corps. He was in the Army with me. He went to the Citadel with me. He's 45 years old. Died of a heart attack.
Wow.
In his driveway.
Mm.
I mean, he was the quarterback for the Citadel. He was the picture of health. Died in his driveway of a heart attack. I mean, that's the third guy in his mid-40s I know that has died of a heart attack in the last 18 months.
Wow. Way before their time.
Way before their time. And I'm thinking, that could be me tomorrow. That could be you tomorrow. And what will I have left on the table?
There's no way a heart attack's going to kill you. It's going to be something.
I used to wish.
It's going to be something crazy.
Before I was
dad,
married.
when we first went into business together, when we first started hanging out and go into business together, his dad looked at me. We were going to burn property over at his place, and his dad pulled up with a trailer with a ATV fire truck. Basically, what it was, he had big water tanks on it to put out fire, and he said, "Listen, I'm going to give you the best tip I can give you right now, early on. Just be quick at dialing 911 if you're going to hang out with him."
That's a vestige of the past. So I used to, before I got married and had kids, I used to think, I hope they recover my body, wherever I am, whether it be on the side of a mountain or whether it be on the bottom of the ocean. Like, that's the way I want to go, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Like that, to me, that seems like such an honorable way to go. And nobody will remember me 5 years from now, and that's okay. But that's the way I want to. I don't want to go in a nursing home with Alzheimer's,
Yeah.
Now I think, well, I want to be around long enough to teach my kids all of these things before I go, because these are important things. These are things that keep you going in life. Like when you're sitting at your desk in front of a computer doing the work that you have to do because either it's your civic duty, like us, or because you need to make money in order to do everything else that you love to do. When you're sitting at your desk, the thing that keeps you going, the thing that keeps you typing, the thing that keeps you sane is thinking about that next thing.
Yep.
That time you get to spend on the mountain with whoever. That time you get to spend on the ocean with whoever. That's what keeps you going, okay? And for my kids to survive, this next generation to survive, living in front of their screens 16 hours a day like they do,
Yep.
they're going to have this outlet that we have, and they're going to have to know how to do it. I have no idea right now, like if I had to write a book, an instruction book for Tripp or Hadley on how to pack, prepare, pack, travel, find an elk, get into the mountains and kill it, and come back. I mean, I could write the book, but it wouldn't do it justice, right?
No.
Same thing. I mean, anything. You pick it. It wouldn't do it justice. It's something that requires hands-on.
Hands-on.
Yep. In person. That's right.
In-person, hands-on attention. You know, it's muscle memory stuff. And it's going to be really sad if I don't get around to actually showing it to them on person, giving them the hands-on.
Yep.
And so now I think I want to live long enough to show them all of that stuff and maybe show my grandkids that stuff one day. And so, you know, I don't have a death wish, as my dad thinks I do or did. I certainly did at one time. I don't have a death wish. I don't have a death wish today. I have a wish to pass along what I've learned and to learn more. I mean, I'm not done, to learn more, but to pass along what I've learned so my kids can enjoy the same thing that I've enjoyed, my escape from that world of the computer screen.
I think we should all be that way with everything that we do. I mean, I do. I think in fishing, like for me, I had nobody, and I always tell everybody this, like I had nobody to help me and hold my hand. I was a golf professional before I moved here, and went into the restaurant business for a little while, and then picked up fishing. And I had nobody to teach me. Like nobody openly would help me. My dad loved to fish, but he worked 68 hours a week as a golf pro and superintendent. And so I made it my objective when my phone dings and it is, I'm going to say his name, Ron Gore, retired from HTC, avid fisherman, and he wants to know about Lapscope. He texted me earlier today. I take the time to respond, and I tell him everything that I can.
Yeah.
When it's, Joe Blow up the side of the road asking about, how I'm catching the bonitos. I take the time to tell him and share it. I do the same thing. I try to pass it on. I worked hard to learn the little bit that I do know, and I do like the fact that I can help somebody else out, and that's, I get a lot of enjoyment from it.
Yeah.
And I think we should all be that way with what we do, and I think there's those that want to keep it all to themselves, and I'm not going to share any of this. This is our secret. I'm like, why be that way? I mean, it's just, I don't know, it's stingy, but it's just like the disqualification, and I'm not going to go into any crazy details, but the disqualification. I typed up a long text yesterday that I wanted to put a long Facebook post that I was going to put up about it, and I deleted it. I didn't put it up there, which is always good, and I'm sure Stephen would be proud of me for that.
I would be.
Because I can get hot-headed, but I deleted it, and I thought about it, and I said, no, I'm not going to put that up there. That's not worth it. I made the mistake. I'm learning from it. And we're going to, Russ is learning from it. And we know now that we read the rules down to the last tee. Just because you fish, 20-something tournaments a year like I do for everything from offshore to bass fishing and everything else.
Right.
You should read the rules.
Yep.
And that's going to be, like from now on, I'll promise you that when I do a seminar or if I talk to a group, I'm going to tell them, make sure if you fish a tournament, read all the rules and take your time. I mean, when you got 7 pages of rules, they're obviously real sticklers for the rules.
Right.
Make sure you read them and understand all of them. You have a question, ask it.
Well, you remember, and I vaguely remember the details, and I don't want to mention the boat or the captain, but someone in the Governor's Cup here in Georgetown a year ago or 2 years ago, there was a licensing issue. And
a good friend of ours was on that boat.
Yeah, it was 2 years.
No way.
It was 2 years ago. Yeah. You know what the ultimate problem here is, I believe, and I'm not trying to get too philosophical. I know people hate that, but the ultimate problem that guys like us have is that we've changed as we've grown and matured. You begin to compete more with yourself than you do with other people.
Yeah. Yep.
In all of these things. And the biggest lesson to learn, I believe, when you're competing with yourself is learning to lose. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you're right.
It's learning to lose.
I agree and understand exactly the point you're making. Yep.
And that is such a hard lesson to learn. I've had that same you had that lesson in Kyrgyzstan on the side of the mountain. I've had that lesson plenty of times. I had that lesson in Zimbabwe. You've had that lesson.
I've had that lesson. I had that lesson in. We had that lesson in the King Mackerel National Championship this year.
Yeah.
When we were offshore in 10-foot seas and we knew there was a potential for a bite there, and we finally just had to say, the towel's in. Let's go, boys. I mean, we have beat ourselves to death, and then now it's becoming dangerous. Like, we need to go. There's no doubt about it.
Learning to lose against yourself is a hard lesson. You know, because I always want to do better. I always want to compete. I'm competing. I don't care. I don't care if you're the best fisherman in the world, Inglis. I
agree.
I don't care if you're the
That's
best.
It.
Jonathan, I don't care if you're the best sheep hunter in the world. I don't. That's great. I love to interact with y'all to learn, but I don't care. Like, what I care about is figuring it out myself.
Yep.
And you know, developing those skills myself and figuring out how to do better next time. And really, like, I love the idea. I'm a DIY hunter. Like, I love the idea of doing it myself.
Yeah.
Public land hunting myself. That's what turns me on. Everybody has their own thing, but that's what turns me on. Yep. And big wide open pieces of land that I can figure out and hunt myself and accomplish it myself.
That's right. Like you said, like it says. I mean, you are a public landowner.
Yeah, that's right.
It belongs to all of us.
100%. And when I fail, you know, like, that's hard. That's hard. That's hard on me. That's hard on my investment. That's hard on my body. When I fail, and you have to learn how to live with those failures within yourself in order to be, you know, happy.
If I can ask, where is your without, and you can name the town or just the general area. Where's your love spot in Colorado? I've hunted it a few times.
So if I had to tell you, like, my favorite spot in Colorado, I like Unit 412 and I like Unit 31. 412 would be like Grand Mesa, outside of like Grand Junction.
Yep.
Area, and Unit 31, like closer to Rifle, and 41, 42, any of that stuff in there. I mean, you can go farther towards Aspen and get into bigger mountains, but I love that, like, high desert feel.
Yeah.
And the weird thing about that part of the country too is if you go, you know, if you're on I-70 and you're coming out of Grand Junction, you can take a right and you can go up Grand Mesa, and it's Aspens, Pinyons transitioning into Aspens, and big, wide open, you know, giant cliff faces, beautiful, where you can take a left off of 70 and you can get in high desert stuff, and like the best looking big muley country you've ever seen in your life, you know, that scrubby Pinyon type stuff. And so I love the diversity of that part of the country, western Colorado. And the people were different too, right? Like eastern Colorado, it just feels like a giant drum circle to me.
Yeah.
You know, and in some cases it literally is a drum circle. Like you get over to anywhere really on the east side anymore, but Boulder is the prototypical. You know, you get over there and there's like naked drum circles and pot smoking hippies everywhere. But you cross that mountain and you come down on the other side, and it's a totally different environment. There's not hardly any people, number one, which is what makes it great. I mean, Grand Junction's about the biggest city you got over there, and I think it's less than 100,000 people. And so I love the western part of Colorado, and there's some big critters in the western part of Colorado.
Yeah.
People just don't chase them.
And a lot of them. I mean, I'm not sure exactly, but the number when I 10, 12, 15 years ago, the first time I went to Colorado, they had a resident population of Rocky Mountain elk of like 330,000.
Yeah. It's huge.
Yeah, and you can find some big ones, but I mean, if you want to start your cut your teeth, you want to go somewhere where there's as many possible shots as there is. And we've hunted down Pagosa Springs, just north of New Mexico, and Montrose, Gunnison.
Yeah.
Got a good friend that's in Gunnison. He and I went to New Zealand together, and I love Colorado. One of my best buddies with Rolling Bones Outdoors is in Denver, and he just texted me last week about applying for a tag to hunt with him in western Colorado. Mm-hmm. So if
what kind of tag?
Mule deer. Oh, he loves mule deer. Loves mule deer.
There's something really appealing. People don't people don't understand this. I find that people don't understand it. But like once you've been hunting elk for a long, if you've been a very accomplished elk hunter for a long time, which I've been very blessed to be able to do that. I've killed a lot. I've killed 10 really nice bulls in the last 25 years, and quite a few of them with a bow. I've done it the hard way. I've killed a few with a rifle. Call it the easy way if you want. There's no easy way. There's no easy elk hunt, as you know.
Yep.
But at some point in time, I started thinking a really big mule deer may be even more difficult than a really big elk. And I found that to be true. And it's just a totally different hunt. And now, like, my focus is now, I still love, and I'm going to go hunt an elk this year, no doubt about it. But my focus is now shifting to, like, finding a really big 200-inch plus. And I don't measure. I don't really care about scores. But, when you see them and you're like, holy moly.
Yeah.
That's the mule deer I'm looking for. Big, old, mature, ruddy, nasty, stinky mule deer, and they're hard to find. Like a really big one's hard to find, and that's what my focus has been the last couple of years. And I'm going to go try to get one this year. And I don't know where I probably will be. I'll probably be in unit 31, 32, 42, somewhere in there. Is probably where I'll be. I'm not sure exactly where yet, but I have identified a couple. I identified a couple of really nice mule deer 2 years ago, on a big high country flat, and I saw them, and they weren't accessible at the time. I think I know how to get to them now, and it's just like you're developing a relationship with the animal almost a little more than you do with some of the other animals, because you can watch them. They're pretty consistent about the transition areas, where, you got winter areas, you got spring and summer areas, and they're pretty consistent. If you see a nice buck that's transitioning from a winter area to a summer area and back, you can just about guarantee you're going to catch him the next year if he's not dead.
Yep.
So you sort of develop a little.
They seem to be like speckled trout, and I've never hunted one, obviously, but I watch YouTube and I watch all the outdoor shows. But they're about like trout. They seem like every year they're going to do the same thing.
But they don't travel. It's not like a whitetail. They don't travel the same trail, right? Like you can say, if he hadn't been killed, if he hadn't been eaten by a mountain lion and he hadn't been killed by a human being, which mountain lions are getting really bad on mule deer in the western part of Colorado. But assuming that he hadn't been killed by a mountain lion or hit by a car or killed by a hunter, you can assume that he's going to travel through the same 10, 15,000 acre piece of land, from this year to next year.
Yeah.
Now, he ain't going to take that same trail. He isn't like a whitetail. He's not going to take the same trail. You're probably not going to see him on the same 500 acres, but you'd most likely see him on the same 10,000 acres. So not quite as easy as you would like it to be, but 10,000 acres in this part of the world is just like you get up on a hill and you do this.
Yeah.
Right? That's 10,000. That's 10,000 acres.
Break out your spotting scope and you
right. Right.
Just a couple hours.
Right. And he may be in a draw, he may be on a hilltop, he may not be, he may be in a shadow, which is oftentimes the case. You may be looking right at him and can't see him.
Yep.
But he's there somewhere.
I just looked up earlier the Marco Polo just because I wanted to obviously see one. Holy crap, those horns get 6 foot long.
Dude, they're massive.
Yeah.
And they don't have many predators.
No, snow leopards.
Asses, I'd be scared to death. Yeah, snow leopards.
We saw a snow leopard.
Did you really?
Killing an ibex while we were out there.
That's unbelievable.
I say we, my hunting partners. They were out for a couple of extra days. They saw it stalking, and then they saw the rush, and a bunch of ibex went up over a draw, and that snow leopard was right behind them, and the snow leopards are much they're pretty crafty, and they know the territory, and he probably already knew the one he was going after, but I don't know if they saw they saw a carcass like a week later.
That's cool.
Wow.
That's super cool.
But the snow leopards don't. I mean, they don't predate on the Marco. The males, they'll get a ewe or a lamb, but the big males, they're going to go and try to kill something that's the easiest to eat, the easiest to capture.
Right.
But for some reason, they like them ibex. And godly, you guys, fellas, let me tell you something. Ibex meat is rough. I've eaten it before, but they stink. Even taxidermy, 5 years later, we've got some at the Bone Cave in South Dakota, and you're just like, golly, that's some pungent stink. But I guess someone likes them.
Like a really oily goat.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And how's Marco Polo's? Sheep meat really good?
Yeah, sheep meat, really incredible. And there's very few wild game that I won't eat. And I've got some friends who are like, I'm not eating. There's very few things that I won't eat. I killed a brown bear in Siberia, and kind of like some of our hogs around here, they carry the brucellosis, or they carry a. Yeah. So we skint my brown bear out and left its carcass there, and that carcass was consumed within a few days by other bears. There's so many bears over there.
Yeah.
But black bear, I've eaten black bear fresh killed in Wyoming, and I've never had any big cat. Never had a mountain lion. But
I killed a mountain lion a few years ago. Story in and of itself, but I killed a mountain lion a few years ago, and I have got this buddy that just has an absolute aversion. Like, would not, I had it processed. I had the hams cured, I had snack sticks made out of it, even cooked stuff.
Yep.
He wouldn't touch it. Anyway, I mixed it in with it was Rick.
You mixed it in on something?
I mixed a bunch of snack sticks in with a bunch of elk snack sticks, and gave him a 5-pound pack of them, and he ate them all. And to this day, I keep thinking, I got that sucker to eat him. He just an absolute aversion. That's disgusting. I'll never eat a cat.
Just know that after this podcast, you will probably be reached out to by Rick. Y'all have not met yet. I'm just letting you know. I'm just giving you a heads
What's
up.
Rick's last name?
Rick
Alston.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
He's a great guy.
Yeah, he's a big elk hunter as well, and but an absolute aversion to eating cat of any kind. And I got him to eat at least.
That was brutal.
Got him to eat at least 2 pounds of cat. But yeah,
some friend you are.
Oh, I know. I'm horrible. Well, this has been awesome. I want to do this
It
again.
has been a great time. Yeah, we got to do this again.
We're like, dude, we're going on hour 45 now, so we got so many more stories we could talk about.
Absolutely.
Will you come back?
I will.
Will you? Yeah. All right. Will you also tell everybody how can they get in touch with you guys for either service? What's the best way to find y'all?
Very easy to find online. Rolling Bones Outdoors or Rolling Bones Outfitters will direct you to our homepage there. And then on our homepage of rollingbones.com, there will be links to Badlands Rifle Company.
Okay, and I'll get that all up too and share it. But we do appreciate you coming in and spending the time with us and hanging out and chatting. It's been a great conversation.
Yeah.
I can't say that y'all have inspired me to start getting points because it sounds like I'll be 90 by the time. But Russ is a junior, so maybe we could I can sign up, and then we can sneak the name and do everything else. But a great time, and thank y'all for joining us here in the Pond Road Storage Studio again. We're going to find us. You're going to find us every week right here on Trilogy Outdoors Podcast. But you can always catch us Saturday mornings. Go to iHeartMedia and check out the Southern English Radio Show on the Gator 107.9. Make sure you pick up Trilogy Outdoors Magazine or just visit TrilogyOutdoorsMedia.com to see all of our brands. And we're going to be back next week talking fin, spur, and feathers here on Trilogy Outdoors Podcast.
Thanks, guys. I look forward to the invitation to make it back.
Awesome.
Perfect. Michelob Ultra and Myrtle Beach wholesaler Southern Crown Partners Incorporated know our consumers enjoy relaxing days on the water with Mich Ultra's crisp and refreshing taste in hand. It's important to remember to drink and boat responsibly. Choose to be or to designate a sober skipper before leaving the dock. Do it for your family and friends, your passengers, and everyone else on board. Michelob Ultra salutes all sober skippers who take the pledge. Cheers, and we'll see you on the water. Hey, y'all, Captain E here with Southern English Radio Show, and I'll tell you what, I am super excited to be down in the Pond Road Storage in Murrells Inlet. I'm located within moments of either going to the river or going to put in the inlet. I'm keeping that Key West 250 Bay Reef indoors, and it is staying in great shape. I only have to wash the boat once now, and that's when I put it up and not before I take it to go fishing. But you can get incredible options here. 20-foot wide, 50-foot deep with 14-foot roll-up doors, a most state-of-the-art security system to keep you that peace of mind on all your products that you may keep in these storage buildings. You've got climate-controlled or non-climate controlled outdoor storage for trailers, RVs, and such. You can't go wrong. 843-855-7375. Give Chris Collins a good call down there. We can't wait. We love broadcasting down here inside the storage building, and you need to come down here and check it out too. Come down. Palm Road Storage, right here in Murrells Inlet.
Trilogy Outdoors Podcast is a product of Trilogy Outdoors Media. All views and opinions of our hosts and guests are not necessarily those of our sponsors. Trilogy Outdoors is produced and edited by Trilogy Outdoors Media. Be sure to follow us on all the podcast platforms as well as our social media pages on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And also don't forget our other brands, Southern English Radio Show and Walk 'Em All Outdoor Magazine. To find more information, visit TrilogyOutdoorsMedia.com. And remember, if it's anything dealing with fins, fur, and feathers, you're going to find it right here on Trilogy Outdoors.